Okay, hello everyone. My name is Luke Tippney. I'm the course director of interior architecture at UTS. Just seeing a lot of people filter in now, so I'm just going to give it a few moments and let everyone come in as the numbers are kind of going up. If you wouldn't mind hanging tight for a moment, and then we'll get started in just a second. Okay, looks like numbers have leveled off there, so I think we'll get started. So again, welcome and hello to the UTS Open Day 2021. I'm Luke Tippney and I'm the course director for the Bachelor of Design and Interior Architecture. And we're joined by one of our alumni here, Amelia Lynn, and so she'll be talking today as well. So before we get started, I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention that we'll be recording this session, and just so that you're aware that how we'll be using that information as well. And I'd also like to start by acknowledging the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, on whose ancestral lands the city's campus is standing now. And we'd also like to pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge they're the traditional custodians of the knowledge of the land, which we feel is quite fitting, being an institution of knowledge, acknowledging the fact that that knowledge still exists in that land. So what I'd like to do today is just spend a bit of time this morning here talking through the structure of the interior architecture program at UTS. And I'll do that by speaking through the main streams that we have, which are the design streams, the communication streams, and then our honours program. And then I'm also going to hand over to Amelia, who we thought would be great. She's incredibly capable, one of our brightest students. So we thought we'd have her come in here and speak about her student experience moving through the program, so you could get a bit of a sense of a student perspective on their experience moving through the degree.
Thanks, Luke. Yeah, I'll be speaking at the end
Great.
The session. Cool.
Good. I'll be handing over to Amelia after I run through the presentation here. So what we have here is a breakdown of how the program really looks. So it's a 3-year program with a 1-year additional honours year available to it. And the program runs 2 semesters per year. And in each of those semesters, generally students take 3 subjects per semester. What you can see here on the screen is the first and second semester, and second, third year, of course. But in the first year, we have each semester really has a design studio, and then it's followed by a communications and construction subject. And that travels through each semester through the entire degree. And in our first year as well, we have a history and theory component. And then in the higher 2 years, when students have a bit of an understanding of the foundations, we have electives that are available for our students to take in second and third year. And then again, just in that final 4th year, optional 4th year, what we have there is it's an honours year, which prepares students with kind of a higher level of skills and specialised knowledge that gives them a kind of cornerstone when they get out there into the industry. Before jumping into detail, I just wanted to say that questions for this session, if you have questions, there's a question option, a Q&A chat, which is going around. And so that's available on the UTS website. So you should go there and ask questions there. And we have some of our members from the interior program who will be manning that chat today and next Tuesday. So please ask those questions if you have them. Also, I'd like to pause and just say, really, interior architecture, what is it about at UTS? What's kind of the driving theme that sits with everything we do here? For us, really, our program speaks to this idea of putting people first, is one of the strongest themes that we carry through our entire program. So what does that mean? It means that we put the human, the body, people and culture at the center of how we go about designing spaces. And so as you'll see when I start talking through our design subjects, really we look to have this human-centric focus be the backbone of how we go through each one of our design studios. So what I'll do now is talk through the design studios across those, there's 6 design studios, 2 in first year, 2 in second year, and 2 in third year. I'll speak through them briefly. I'll also speak through then the communication and construction subjects, and then talk a little bit about honours. And so what you see here is the first of our design studios, which is our first year design studio for our kind of students that come into to first year. And so this subject, as I mentioned, we kind of have this idea of focusing on people and putting people at the centre of our design practice. Here, that really is embodied through the design project, where students look to start by designing experiences through things that they can wear and make. And so this is a wonderful exercise for our first year students, where they have this opportunity to come in and be incredibly creative and explore these ideas of experiences and how we actually construct things like atmospheres and those kind of relational situations that we can work with through things like materials and sounds and working on site. The second design studio then, going from this idea of these foundational skills in being highly creative and innovative in terms of making these material assemblages, we bring that into some of the core skills and knowledge around interior practices. And so in this semester, we have our students work with historic properties in Sydney and working with real artists and designers. And what they're asked to do is to come up with the idea of a creative hub for a kind of alteration and addition of existing residences within Sydney, and then altering them so that they're suitable for these new clients, which are artists and designers, as a makerspace for them. Really embedding some of those key foundational skills in interior architecture, things like space planning and material analysis. Then in our second year, again with this theme of the body, our students move into the idea of performance studies and performance design. And so they do a set design piece with actual set designers and directors that we bring in for the students to be able to work with in this program. So increasing in complexity and increasing in scale. Following that, we move into our new subject, which is a subject on knowledge spaces. And so this is specifically looking at getting students to design interior designs for what we call the GLAM sector, which is galleries, libraries, archives, and museums. And so students are looking at things like the choreography of how people move through space, concepts of spatial narrative, as well as that relational relationship between the body, objects in space that are curated, and then the space itself. Then next, so at the beginning of our third year, our students do a design studio called Spatial Agency. And this studio is an on-country studio where students have the opportunity to work and consult with Indigenous communities locally in Sydney, as well as regionally in broader New South Wales. And so it's a tremendous opportunity for our students to really work with real clients, where many of the designs that are put forward are speculations that hopefully will one day be built. And so in terms of keeping with this theme of putting people first, this particular studio increases the scale of that idea. So now we look at things like community infrastructure and start to think about how we can support community at a broader scale, but still with that, using spatial design at that broader scale, but still with that focus on putting people first. And then finally, so after the kind of 5 studios that precede it, this increasing level of complexity of looking at putting people first in our spatial design practices, students then finish the 3 years with a major project here. And the major project here is again at a larger scale, again, looks at the idea of the urban interior. So if that's the progression through the 6 design studios, then I'll just briefly here speak through the subjects that accompany those design studios, which are our communications and construction subjects. And so these subjects really provide a backbone of skills and knowledge that enable students to really do a lot of the work that they can do in their design studios. So it starts in first year again, with our first subject here, which is representations. And so this really provides a foundation for students of how to represent their ideas and some of the core representational systems that we use in interior spaces. So things like axisymmetric and orthographic projection, as well as things like perspectives. In the second semester then, in first year, we use this subject to really introduce students to the concepts of how interior spaces are constructed in a material sense, with a real heavy emphasis on actual material practices and how to, what are materials, how do we work with them, how do we research them, how do we know what they can do, and how do we know to kind of push them and use them in particular ways. And so this is a wonderful construction subject which introduces them to the nature of basic construction, but also to material practices and research and ideas of sustainability with materiality. Beginning of our second year, we increase again in complexity. And so this is a communication and construction subject where we look at the idea of material futures. And so what are the kind of high technology materials that are available and that are going to be available in the future, and how do we have our students engage with those high tech practices that are starting to drive a lot of industry focus. And so here we teach our students to use things like all of our 3D technology, so 3D renderings and 3D visualization, as well as 3D modeling and CNC routing and 3D printing as well. So next, we have at the end of second year, this construction subject, which introduces students to really a foundational knowledge in professional levels of things like detailing interior spaces. And so this subject's really geared towards an introduction to how students would go about developing and drawing up real interior projects, as well as drawing everything down to the details, with an emphasis on lighting design, which is really important. It's a key piece that we have here at UTS, is a strong emphasis on lighting design. We find it's embedded in many ways in terms of how interior practices really work, and it's so important to the success of interiors. And so we make sure our students have a strong knowledge of it in this subject. So then at the beginning of third year, increasing again in complexity, our students then learn about interior technologies. So we start looking at all kind of the supportive infrastructure that's required to really put interior spaces together and to make interior spaces work very well. So things like air conditioning, HVAC systems and fire systems, and how students actually engage with that allows them to really understand when we construct these experiences and atmospheres inside interior spaces. It speaks to all the supportive resources and infrastructure that sits around them. So then finally, with all that knowledge, again, you see over those 5 subjects building up from basic representation skills through things like material practices, material futures, kind of understanding construction, and then we get to the final communication and construction subject here, which is in the 6th semester and at the end of third year. And really this is to bring together all those other subjects so that students, what they do is produce a DA development application kind of package for an interior fit out. And so this gives them that real confidence that they can finish at third year and go into our honours program, but have the skills and knowledge to be able to participate at an industry level at the day that they leave. And so, yeah, it's a great opportunity for our students to apply those skills and really have in their portfolio a really, really solid background, both in design, but also in how they go about constructing and working at a professional level from the day they kind of leave, they leave third year. Good, so before I talk about honours for a moment, I just take a moment here to just reflect on, there's 2 history and theory subjects that we build into the first year. So these are really formative, and they allow our students to really embed in both a theoretical basis in terms of how we think about interiors, interior practices, and the ideas associated with the interior, so interiority, subjectivity, and how people really relate to the idea of interior space. The second one of these history and theory subjects really looks at a canonical, so like a sequential sequence of kind of the history of interior practices. Interiors is an incredibly rich area in terms of its theory, because it's evolving in a really big scale at the moment. And so over the 20th century, it's seen many, many different approaches to it. And so we really like it. We feel it's important our students have a strong understanding of the history and theories of interior, because they'll be the ones out there defining the future of what that interior practice looks like when they start getting out there and working in interiors. Good. So then after the 3 years then, there's the optional fourth year honours. And so that fourth year honours just has 3 subjects in it, 2 in the first semester and then 1 in the second semester. And really our honours program is an opportunity for our students to go that extra year and develop just specialised skills and knowledge in interior practices, much more from an inquiry model as well. So students define their own project briefs, they define their own parameters of what they're looking to do there, and then they go about actually looking to prove in a research supported way, prove their design ideas through the design projects. It's a really wonderful semester, really wonderful year, and it allows our students to engage in really high levels of work practices, as well as engage with industry and engage with industry in a research focused way. So some of the work you're seeing here is from last honours project, which was working with lighting design companies, and they did enormous lighting installations. Other works you're seeing here as well are from some of our previous honours years, where they looked at ideas as in a research model of speculations around new ideas for public housing. Good. And the final slide I'll just show you here before I pass on to Amelia in a moment is some of the other educational opportunities that we offer for our students. So outside of the core curriculum, which I've just kind of run you through, we also offer a really wonderful suite of electives and what we call global studios. So global studios currently are on hold, of course, because of the pandemic, but as soon as we're able to, we look to be having them open up again. But our global studios are really putting our students in international contexts to work with industry professionals and experts in the field in Australia, but also overseas. And so here's just an example of some of the international global studios that we've had in the past, where what we do is we in the program, we take the students, like a number of students, usually 20 or so, and take them overseas, and they work on a project in real time with real designers or with professionals. And so here we've gone to Indonesia in the past, Sweden, Greece, and New Zealand as well. And we've also got our IKEA elective here, which is one of our industry engagements where we work with IKEA. And they come in and they work with the students on speculative projects around the future of living. Some of our other industry projects as well have recently included working with the UN, where students have been working on a design for UN in New York, and as well as the IKEA studio here, and our on-country practices as well. And so at that point, I think what I'm going to do is hand over to Amelia. So what I'll do just before I hand over to you, Amelia, I'll just go to the next slide here. This slide here, I just put this up. I might leave this up whilst you're talking, Amelia. This slide here just has a QR code. So it leads you to the FAQs, and then also there's the one-on-one advisory chats that is also open as well. So if you want to get into that one, if you have some questions, you can direct them there. Good.
Cool. So I'll pick up from there. Thanks, Luke. So a quick intro for me. Hi, everyone. I'm Amelia. I graduated from interior architecture in December 2020, so quite recently. So what led me to interior architecture? I was always interested in like creative pursuits as well as technical interest in school, and that was reflected in the subjects I did. So when it came to uni, I wanted to do something creative as well as technical. So design turned out to fit that criteria for me. Something that was hands-on as well as having a strong digital focus was what I wanted, and also focusing on the human experience. So I really enjoyed my time during my degree. So this is about my experience during the degree. So in my personal experience, I was thinking about doing architecture during my first year, but then I chose to do interior architecture at first because it was more specific, and I think I wanted to focus on something more specific, focusing on details at a smaller scale. So I wanted to keep my options open, but I ended up enjoying interior architecture so much that I decided to continue with it. And that is one of the questions I get a lot on open days, is like, how do you decide whether or not you want to do architecture, interior, or landscape, things like that. It just really depends on the scale that you want to work at. So some subjects that I did during interior architecture were, I'll just talk about them now. So I did some really cool subjects that put me in touch with industry, including working with creative clients in my first year. That was actually with Luke in Luke's studio. I also got to experience working on a correctional facility, so that was quite interesting, with one of the academics focusing on improving like prison design. That was his focus on his PhD, so that was very interesting for me. I got to go in and interview some inmates out of correctional facility, which was really cool. Okay, so that was focused on design agency. So we got to really experience how to work with various clients. Another good one for industry experience was special industry projects as electives. So I did one with IKEA, and that ended up working towards me going on a research trip in Sweden. And we had a great time seeing IKEA HQ in a small town in Sweden where IKEA was founded. And their headquarters are still there till this day. So they really have a history, and it was really cool to see all the ins and outs there. So I ended up doing a year of research for that lab, and we looked at privacy, the future of sleep, the future of how we will live in Australia in our homes. And they did run a few global studios, so that connection is still there, that partnership with IKEA. So that would be a good one to look into. Okay, so I'll move on to graduate destinations. So during my degree, I also did a lighting elective in lighting design, which led me to pursue lighting design after uni. So right now I'm working in architectural illumination design, which is really exciting. We work on galleries and museums across Australia and around the world, as well as this is a global industry as well as a global company. So not sure how much I can say about the specific projects, but it's very much cultural sector work, which I love, and I'm excited to see how that turns out for me as well. So I think that's it for me. Thanks. I hope that was useful.
Yeah, thank you, Amelia. It's great to hear from our alumni, and also, like I said, Amelia's had an excellent progression through our program, and so yeah, we just wanted her to come in and kind of speak to her experiences there. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And shout out for first semester with me, first year design studio. And so I think there's a really good point there as well. That correctional project was an amazing project to work on, and really part of trying to make a difference, which was great to see. So well done, Amelia. We have a few minutes. I would be happy to take a few questions if people would like to raise any questions. I've just gone through whilst Amelia was talking, and the questions I can see in the chat here, I believe all of them have been addressed during the presentation. There's a few questions here around things like portfolio and UAC, and I think those ones are probably best directed to the chat. They seem to be kind of one-on-one specific questions there, so I might keep them. But I'm happy to kind of field any questions that are coming through now, just for the last few minutes. Okay, so there's a couple of good ones coming through now, which is there a lot of math involved? The biggest misconception, I think, around the design industry is the idea that maths is really a fundamental basis of how we approach it. Wouldn't you say, Amelia?
Yeah, so I think just having a good foundation is enough, but generally we don't really do anything complicated. No,
exactly. Math is really, it's not a guiding force. In engineering, of course it is, but for design, we really look at design as it's a humanities subject which is buildable, and so there's a large emphasis on critical theory, and then also kind of philosophies of the interior, which then find their way into actual material practices. And so I don't think you'd have to be concerned about levels of math. I think we get our students to maybe add up a couple of times, but that's about it. Other one here is around software. So software is a really good question. We teach our students Rhino in first year because it's a quite a versatile platform to be using for visualization, but also for advanced 3D modeling. And it's used quite commonly at the moment across the industry. And that then is supported by the opportunity to learn other programs. So currently our students are learning ArchiCAD, AutoCAD, and Revit. And the reason being is that there's a few industry standard programs, but they change and are updated regularly. And there's a level of fluidity in terms of what program and what platform you're being expected to work on. Our feedback from industry really is that they don't really need the students to know the programs as experts when they graduate and start working into a practice. Practices actually expect the fact that they're going to have to train students or new employees to how to use the platform that they use for their particular company. What's the key though is the graduate's willingness to learn and preparedness to dive right in and to really try. And so what we like to do, we train students to a level with our programs, but really it's that idea of being critically engaged, being really eager. And we really look for our students to have that opportunity to then jump in and look to learn in order to kind of support their own professional development. Would you say similarly?
I can really vouch for that. The design degree actually gave me a good foundation for what was to come next, but every practice is quite specific and they have their specific programs that they use. And especially if you go into a niche like lighting design as well, there's a lot of programs I have to learn for those sort of like applications as well. So it is really about the eagerness and willingness to learn as well. Yeah, that's what they're looking for.
Great. And then I think I'll try and fill this one quickly if I can squeeze in one more. There's a question here around electives, just a bit more about that. So those global studios that I referred to, they run as electives. And we also have a series of electives inside the program. So I run an advanced drawing elective. We have the IKEA elective, which we refer to, which is an industry elective. And then we have a few other electives that come in and out of the program. The School of Architecture, so we sit in, has electives as well. And so our students are able to take those electives. And then the faculty has electives, which students are able to take them as well. And then at the larger scale, the university then has cross-faculty electives. So the range there is important for students to be able to get a sense of determining their own path through the course. And so it gives them an opportunity to really find things that they may not want to focus on in terms of a career, but might have a real passion in and want to just get some knowledge of. And so that's what that is for. And then I guess a good one here to finish on is what are the careers that come from this degree? We look to really graduate students off who can work quite diversely within many design disciplines, but the main areas that our students work into as graduates is really large scale interior and architecture practices. A lot of architecture practices at the moment have interior divisions within them, and so a lot of our students graduate into them. And so we have graduates in most of the major firms in Sydney, like Hassel, Cox, Woods, Bagot. That's really where our graduates go. Or we have students who prefer to work at smaller scale, and so they'll find themselves working in kind of boutique interior practices and interior firms, working on things like houses, restaurants, things like that. But with our emphasis on performance and theatre and also event design, we have graduates who go into the events, exhibition and performance industry. So those graduates go into things like working in set design, or we have graduates who've gone on to work to study at NIDA and then work in film and television. And we also have graduates that go into exhibition design, exhibition design as a practice. There's several major interior exhibition design firms that we're quite closely affiliated with. And then other areas is with our emphasis on social work and social infrastructure and indigeneity and Indigenous practices. We have students who we look to graduate them into, some of them in a research space at the moment, in working on Indigenous housing projects and yeah, projects which are on country at the moment. They're kind of the major areas, as well as where Amelia is working at the moment as well, which is in lighting design. And that comes through from that experience in the program as well. And in lighting design, I think we've had several, actually just recently, we've had a big jump in the amount of students that are now graduating and working into lighting design, which is excellent. Yeah. But I think that's it. I think that's it. Our time's up. So again, thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time now, and I hope that was useful to you. Thank you, Amelia. And after this, yeah, you can scan the QR code or go into the FAQs. So to go into the FAQs, sorry, or you can go into the chat. So thank you.